There is so much revisionist history when it comes to Baker Mayfield in his time in Cleveland. It is unbelievable to me. And I'm saying this as somebody who, one, I was excited when they drafted Baker. Two, go back and watch episodes on this show. We went to bat for Baker. Yes, a ton. By the end, we were soured on him, but we defended the crap out of him after his bad season with Freddie. And then we went after anybody who said he wasn't good the year that we went to the playoffs in 2020. But all I had to do was listen to national media people, even Cleveland media people, everybody. Even when Baker was playing well, all I ever had to hear was how he wasn't good enough to get the Browns to the next level. And then the Browns move on from him to go get a guy who 14 other teams were trying to get. So it's not like the Browns were the only team who was out there in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes and trying to get the 14 other teams were trying to get him. Okay. So let's not pretend like we were the only idiots that tried to get Deshaun. And then couple that with the fact that Baker then went to Carolina, a team that can't find a quarterback since Cam Newton, and they cut him mid-season because he was statistically the worst quarterback in football. He was like ranked 35th out of 32 eligible quarterbacks in Carolina. Then he goes to LA. And do they keep him there as their backup? No, they let him walk and draft an alcoholic quarterback out of Georgia instead. A guy who immediately has to go to rehab and never plays for it. And they could have had Baker. They have an old injury-prone quarterback, and they could have had a high. He only signed for $5 million in Tampa Bay. You don't think the Rams would have kept him for $5 million? He had one place to go, and it was Tampa Bay, and it was because Tom Brady retired. And then when he got there, he was in a quarterback battle with Kyle Trask. And they didn't beat him out until camp was basically done. Okay? If the Browns would have brought in a QB competition for Baker, he would have thrown a fit in Cleveland. It would not have been him over. He would have thrown a fit. Baker himself has gone on podcasts and talked about how he needed to grow up, how he needed to be humble. It turns out having 1 foot out the league will do that to you. Okay. Also, getting 3 years older will do that to you. I'm happy for Baker that he's playing well. I still like Baker commercials and Baker interviews and Baker press conferences. I'm happy, but let's not pretend like Baker, he wouldn't have survived the next year. He went to Carolina and was the worst quarterback in football. Every single person who's banging the drum for Baker right now, 3 games into that season would have been screaming that we needed to get rid of him. He was the worst quarterback in football the year after we got rid of him. It wasn't even close. So we have to stop with this revisionist history on Baker Mayfield. I'm happy for him. He's having a good season. Okay. But he's also still very predictable in terms of like, you can look at a Tampa Bay schedule and say, Baker's going to play well in this game. He's going to play well in this game. He's going to play well in this game. He's going to struggle in this game. He's going to struggle. And you can go do it. I went through it and did that. They played 8 games against teams with winning records this year. He went 4-4. A couple, in I believe 4 of those games, he threw for 200 yards or less. Okay. And then that's not even counting a bad game against the Niners, who are under 500. So I didn't count it. It's not counting a win they got against the Panthers where he didn't play very well and he threw 2 picks. So he is who he was here. He is a higher end of the mid-tier quarterbacks, and he's a lower end of the upper tier quarterbacks. He's right there in the middle. Even this year with the good season he's having, he's 16th in QBR. That's literally right in the middle of the league in terms of QBR.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to stop with yes, he's playing better now than Deshaun Watson or any other quarterback on our team. He wouldn't have survived this point. He wouldn't be here. He wouldn't still be on the team right now.
No.
Because even if you're saying it was the injured season, again, the very next year in Carolina, he was laughably bad. A team without a quarterback got rid of him. And I don't even know who they run with the rest of the year.
That's a good point. I don't either. People want to just look at the ESPN stats and say, all right, copy Baker Mayfield, paste on Browns. Look, Browns would be a playoff team if we hadn't cut Baker or traded Baker. And you can't do that. You can't copy and paste what a guy is doing in a different city on a different team 3 years later and just assume the same exact thing would be playing out right now had none of that other stuff transpired like you talked about. in that 3-year window. And I was talking to somebody else today, and I hear this crap all the time, and it drives me nuts. Because you talk about the revisionist history, people say, oh, well, if the Browns hadn't forced Baker to play injured that whole year, he'd still be here. And every time I see that, I'm like, hold up. Baker Mayfield forced the Browns to play him injured. He did it every week. We talked about this every week that season because we were doing the podcast at the time. This is our 5th year now. We were covering the whole Baker time. And it was nuts because he would go to the media and say, oh, my shoulder's totally fine. I'm making every throw in practice. So we'd come on the show and talk about the upcoming game and say, hey, Baker seems to be doing well in practice. He's talking to the media saying he's good. And then he'd go out and he'd play terrible on Sunday. And immediately after the game, in the post game, he'd say, yeah, shoulder's really bothering me. He knew he was in a contract year situation. He knew he was trying to get that bag of money. And so he was going to make sure he was on the field playing. And it hurt everybody. It hurt the Browns. It hurt him in the short term. But, like you said, having one foot out of the league, getting cut by 3 different teams in a calendar year, essentially, and then having to go compete with Kyle Trask on basically like a vet minimum for a quarterback. Yeah, that'll humble you.
Yeah. And let's not pretend like we play in the AFC North. Okay. He'd be playing Baltimore and Pittsburgh once a year. He's down in the NFC South now. He gets to play the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons.
Yep.
Twice a year. Like he's not playing in the AFC North anymore. So it drives me nuts. Like he again, I'm happy for him, but you guys, it's wild to me, the revisionist history on Baker Mayfield. And the last thing I'll touch on is because of that, he came out every time and said, if I didn't think I was the best option for this team, I wouldn't play. But then he went on podcast after we got rid of him and talked about how he wasn't 100% because his shoulder was hurt.
Right.
So he was putting himself over the team by playing himself, like you said. And he was not. He was in the locker room. There were multiple reports from multiple people that he was rubbing people the wrong way in the locker room for calling out Duke Johnson in his salary negotiations, for talking about medical things, for forcing himself to play when he wasn't 100% and then not playing well enough to play at the level. He didn't want to sit that year because he knew Case Keenum could come in and win ball games. And if Case Keenum came in and won ball games, the Browns would not hand him a contract because they'd say, we won ball games with the backup. Why would we give you $40 million a year? So he forced his hand to play, and it got him cut, like you said, 3 times in a calendar year before he was humbled enough to grow up enough to go down there and win a QB competition and now play great. And I applaud him for that.
Yes, me too.
It's not it's not easy to humble yourself and grow up and and have your back against the wall and figure it out and now play really well. And I'm happy for the guy. But let's not talk like Cleveland Brown, like the Browns front office was the only people in the world that said Baker Mayfield wasn't good enough to be here. The media said it. Our media said it. Fans said it. The Panthers said it. The Rams said it. Everybody said it.
And the Bucs said, maybe?
Yes. They
weren't sure. That's why. Yeah, for sure. And, it kind of goes back to the talk that we were having about the rookie quarterbacks because, Caleb Williams going to Chicago. It's tough for any quarterback to go to Chicago. Some organizations it's not easy to go be a quarterback and have success for that organization. The Jets is another one. And the Browns are one of those organizations, obviously, because we've got like 40 some starting quarterbacks since 99. It's not easy to come here and be successful and be that guy. We've never had that guy. We still can't get that guy. So, the situation matters for pretty much all positions, but the quarterback position the most. Situation and scheme and coaching and the players around you. Baker's got a lot of good things in Tampa Bay. He, like you said, he put in the work. He did what he had to do to put himself in this situation to be successful, and good for him. But it had to happen this way for it to happen. It was not going to occur in Cleveland.
My favorite thing here is Tampa Bay has played the Lions, 49ers, Chargers, Cowboys, and Chiefs. I know he's 2-3 in those games. Yes, that's what I said. He's 2-3 in those games.
Yeah, aren't they 9-7 right now?
I believe so. They got to win this week, and they need the Falcons to lose, or else they won't make the playoffs. I'm pretty sure. Unless the Falcons losing this past week did it. I'm not sure. Maybe they couldn't start. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I don't watch the NFC South all the time.
Yeah.
But again, he's in the arguably the worst division of football.
I think for sure the worst.
Good luck with the QB carousel for the next decade. Well, we appreciate it. Go be a Baker Bros somewhere else. So Baker's record is 1 game over 500 in the worst division of football since he went there. Again, I'm not. He is who he was at his best here. We watched him play great here. We also watched him not play great against any time we faced the top 15 defense, which is why we moved on from him. Hopefully, maybe he'll play better. Maybe they'll go on a playoff run this year, and then we can talk about good for Baker. Again, we have said in the last 5 minutes, we are happy for Baker. We are just mad at all the people who pretend like this version of Baker is who we had in Cleveland or who immediately left Cleveland. If anybody looks stupid, aren't the Carolina Panthers the last team to have him as a full-time starter? And aren't the Carolina Panthers in that division? So they cut a guy who is now in the division who beat them twice this year. So maybe the Carolina Panthers should be the ones catching the flag, not the team that he hasn't been on in 3 other teams. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And, sometimes these quarterbacks are not their best version of themselves in the first contract, in the first 4 or 5 years of their career. And everyone's talking about Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield were both on the Panthers together at one point, and they cut them both. Sam Darnold was ass in Carolina, and so was Baker. That's why they got cut. It took getting cut, growing up, being a couple years older. Sam Darnold being in an offensive system that just produces awesome quarterback statistics. I mean, performances from quarterbacks in Minnesota, it's a plug and play. Kevin O'Connell's got it going on there. Now, would Sam Darnold be doing what Sam Darnold's doing right now if he were still in New York or still in Carolina? I don't think so. The situation really does matter so much for these quarterbacks. And then also your maturity, you're growing up, getting more acquainted with the league and everything. It's just, it does not click immediately for some of these guys.